Imagine a company that soared to become a titan in the financial technology world, valued at over 28 billion euros, only to spectacularly collapse in one of Germany's biggest corporate fraud scandals. This is the story of Wirecard, a German payment processing firm that promised innovation but delivered deception. Founded in 1999, Wirecard initially processed payments for adult entertainment and online gambling, a niche that allowed it to grow rapidly outside traditional banking scrutiny. Under the leadership of CEO Markus Braun, a software engineer with a vision for digital finance, Wirecard transformed into a supposed fintech powerhouse. By 2018, Wirecard had replaced Commerzbank in Germany's prestigious DAX 30 index, a symbol of its perceived success and legitimacy. However, beneath the veneer of success, cracks began to appear. For years, journalists and short sellers had raised red flags. The Financial Times, led by reporter Dan McCrum, published a series of investigative articles detailing accounting irregularities and suspicious transactions, particularly in Wirecard's Asian operations. These reports alleged that a significant portion of Wirecard's reported revenue and profits were fabricated, relying on a complex web of third-party acquiring partners. Despite the mounting evidence, German financial regulator BaFin initially sided with Wirecard, even launching investigations against the journalists and short sellers who dared to question the company. The turning point came in June 2020, when Wirecard's auditor, EY, refused to sign off on its annual accounts. The reason? 1.9 billion euros, supposedly held in trust accounts in the Philippines, could not be found. This revelation triggered a rapid and irreversible collapse. CEO Markus Braun was arrested, and COO Jan Marsalek, the alleged mastermind, vanished. Wirecard filed for insolvency, leaving investors, creditors, and employees in shock and financial ruin. The Wirecard scandal exposed significant flaws in corporate governance, auditing practices, and regulatory oversight within Germany and beyond. It serves as a stark reminder of the importance of independent journalism and the dangers of unchecked corporate power. In 2015, a journalist named Dan McCrum at the Financial Times started investigating Wirecard. Something didn't add up. Wirecard claimed they were making huge profits in Asia through third-party acquirers, basically partner companies that processed payments on Wirecard's behalf. These partners were supposedly bringing in hundreds of millions in revenue. But Dan McCrum couldn't find them. He'd look up these companies, and they'd be tiny operations in Singapore with no employees, or shell companies with fake addresses, or businesses that had completely different owners than Wirecard claimed. In 2016 and 2019, McCrum published articles exposing these red flags. He showed documents suggesting Wirecard was faking revenue. He found ex-employees who said the Asian operations were fraudulent. But instead of investigating Wirecard, German authorities investigated Dan McCrum. Wirecard filed criminal complaints against him for market manipulation. They claimed he was working with short sellers, investors betting against Wirecard stock to drive down the price. German financial regulators BaFin actually banned short selling of Wirecard stock to protect the company. McCrum was facing potential arrest. The Financial Times had to hire lawyers. Wirecard hired private investigators to follow journalists, dig into their personal lives, and intimidate them. And here's the crazy part. It worked. For years, nobody believed the journalists. Everyone believed Wirecard. Why? Because Wirecard had something journalists didn't have: audited financial statements from Ernst & Young, one of the big four accounting firms. UI had been auditing Wirecard for over a decade and kept saying everything was fine. If one of the world's most respected auditing firms said Wirecard was legitimate, who was going to believe some journalist? Chapter 3. The missing billions. But the questions kept growing. And in 2019, KPMG, another major accounting firm, was brought in to do a special audit of Wirecard's Asian operations. In October 2019, KPMG started digging, and immediately they ran into problems. Wirecard claimed they had $1 billion sitting in bank accounts in the Philippines, held by their partner companies. KPMG asked to see bank statements. Wirecard said, "Sure, here you go." But when KPMG contacted the banks directly to verify the money was real, the banks said, "We don't have accounts with those companies." The bank statements were fake. KPMG found more issues: contracts that didn't make sense, revenue that couldn't be traced, partner companies that existed only on paper. In April 2020, KPMG released their report. They said they could not verify large parts of Wirecard's business. Red flags everywhere. Wirecard stock dropped, but Markus Braun went on TV and said KPMG was wrong. He blamed the auditors for not understanding the complexity of their business. But now, Ernst & Young, Wirecard's main auditor, had a problem. They've been signing off on Wirecard's financials for years. If the money wasn't real, EY had been approving fake numbers. So in June 2020, EY demanded proof. They wanted to see the cash. Wirecard claimed they had 1.9 billion euros sitting in two banks in the Philippines, BDO and BPI. EY asked for verification. Wirecard provided documents. Then EY did something they should have done years earlier. They contacted the banks directly. On June 18, 2020, both banks issued public statements. We do not hold any accounts for Wirecard. The documents are fake. 1.9 billion euros, gone. It never existed. Chapter 4, The Collapse. When the news broke, chaos erupted. Wirecard stock crashed 60% in a single day. Trading was halted. Markus Braun went on TV and said the money was probably stolen and they were investigating. But investigators weren't buying it. On June 19, 2020, one day after the missing billions were discovered, Markus Braun resigned as CEO. On June 22, he was arrested by German police on suspicion of fraud and market manipulation. But here's where it gets even crazier. Wirecard's chief operating officer, Jan Marsalek, was supposed to meet with investigators. He was the guy in charge of the Asian operations, the fake ones. If anyone knew where the money went, it was him. But on June 19th, Jan Marsalek got on a private plane and disappeared. He flew from Austria to Belarus. Then, according to intelligence reports, he likely went to Russia. And he's still missing today. There's an international arrest warrant, but Russia won't extradite him. Some reports say he's living in Moscow under protection. On June 25th, 2020, Wirecard filed for bankruptcy. A $28 billion company, gone in 1 week. Investigators started unraveling the fraud, and what they found was stunning. The fake revenue in Asia had been going on since at least 2015, maybe earlier. Wirecard had been creating fake invoices, fake contracts, and fake bank statements for years. They'd inflate their revenue and profits to make the company look successful, which drove up the stock price. Executives would sell their stock at these inflated prices, making themselves rich while lying to everyone else. They set up shell companies in the Philippines, Singapore, and Dubai. They'd move money between these fake companies to make it look like real business was happening. One office in Manila that was supposed to be processing millions in payments? It was just an empty room in a building. No employees, no computers, nothing. The fallout from Wirecard was massive. Investors lost billions. Pension funds, retirement accounts, regular people who trusted a DAX 30 company, all wiped out. In September 2022, Markus Braun went on trial in Munich. He's facing charges of fraud, breach of trust, and market manipulation. If convicted, he could spend 15 years in prison. The trial is still ongoing as of 2024. Jan Marsalek, the COO who fled, is still at large. Interpol has a red notice for him. He's believed to be in Russia, possibly with connections to Russian intelligence. Some reports suggest he'd been working with Russian spies even while running Wirecard. Ernst & Young, the auditing firm, faces massive lawsuits. How did they miss years of fraud? How did they sign off on financial statements when $2 billion didn't exist? EY claims Wirecard deceived them with fake documents, but critics say they should have caught it earlier. Germany's financial regulator BaFin was humiliated. Instead of investigating Wirecard, they'd gone after the journalists trying to expose the fraud. BaFin's president eventually resigned in disgrace. And the journalists who'd been threatened, surveilled, and accused of lying, they were vindicated. Dan McCrum from the Financial Times won awards for his reporting. He'd been right all along. So what can we learn from the Wirecard scandal? First, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Wirecard claimed explosive growth in Asia with impossibly high profit margins. Investors wanted to believe it because the stock kept going up. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the evidence was never there. Second, auditors aren't foolproof. Ernst and Young audited Wirecard for over a decade and missed a massive fraud. Just because a company has clean audits doesn't mean they're telling the truth. Auditors can be deceived, or sometimes they don't look hard enough. Third, listen to the skeptics. When journalists started exposing problems, Wirecard attacked them instead of addressing the issues. Whenever a company responds to criticism with lawsuits, intimidation, and personal attacks instead of facts, that's a red flag. Fourth, regulatory capture is real. German regulators were so proud of Wirecard, their homegrown tech success, that they protected the company instead of investigating it. They banned short selling and went after journalists. National pride blinded them to fraud. Fifth, white-collar crime pays, until it doesn't. Marcus Braun lived like a king for years. Private jets, luxury lifestyle, meetings with world leaders. But eventually, the lies catch up, and when they do, prison is waiting. The Wirecard scandal destroyed $28 billion in value. It humiliated Germany's financial system. It proved that even companies in the most prestigious stock indexes can be frauds. And it showed that sometimes the biggest lies are hiding in plain sight. For 20 years, Wirecard told the world they were a tech giant. In reality, they were a house of cards built on fake invoices, shell companies, and forged bank statements. And when the truth finally came out, it took just 1 week for the entire empire to collapse. Thanks for watching Temverse.